Welcome to Ministry Mondays with Meg. I'm Meg. Welcome to the show, everybody. Glad to have you here. If you've not seen the show before, one, where have you been? And two, welcome. So Ministry Mondays with Meg, what's it about? It's about all the different kinds of ministry there is, because there's so much more to ministry than just what goes on in the church, in the worship service on Sunday. There's so much more. And so I have um, the opportunity, I'm blessed to be able to talk to all sorts of people who serve in so many different ways. And I know I say almost every time that I'm excited about my guest, but that's true. And this one, yeah, this one, like, the one that I never saw coming. So, full disclosure, I come from the thriving metropolis of Hope, Indiana, a town with no stoplights, even now. I don't know if I assume like the liquor store and things are still there, maybe. But, and went to this tiny high school that was too small to even have a football team. And my guest today, you were the year in front of me, was it graduated the year before I did. Trumpet player, basketball star, right? Ryan Taylor. Whoa. Yeah, so welcome to the show, Ryan, and thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me, Meg. How often do we get to interact with somebody from high school?
Right. I mean, there's the Facebook thing, but that's
Yeah, live
weird.
in this sort
Yeah,
of, and with somebody that's kind of went down a similar path that you have. Like it just
right,
doesn't happen. So this is
right.
this is a big privilege for me as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm just so glad that you're here. And like as we were chatting before, you're like, my memories are like high school. Yeah, like you were the, at least to me, seemed like a pretty quiet guy. But the basketball, started the basketball team and the trumpet player in the row behind me, and me in clarinet section faking it because I was terrible. But also I didn't practice enough. But that's another story for another time. Um, so like for people who don't know you, um, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, like how did you get from Indiana, you know, to where you are now?
Yeah, it's a wild story. We all have a wild story, but it. So I went. Yeah, the whole hope was to be the basketball star and to create some sort of career out of the sport of basketball. So Meg, the idea was to go to college, play some basketball, get an education degree, and probably be a social studies teacher or the PE teacher and coach the basketball team, right?
Yeah.
So I started on that track, and I went to Huntington College. It's called Huntington University now. It's up by Fort Wayne, Indiana, and played a couple of years of basketball in college, but then it just sort of stopped working out for me. It was really hard for me to keep up with classes and grades and such, and so I stopped playing basketball when I was a junior in college, and that devastated me because I had no other trajectory, vision, dream at that point in life. And so it was around that time that I started reading Henry Nouwen and some other authors that were kind of like, we end up finding our way forward um, by going down first, sometimes by dreams being splattered, uh, crashed, and then our life starts to unfold before us. And well, that's a neat idea and all, but when it
But
happened,
you're 20.
you're 20. Yeah. You have no other vision for what life is gonna be like. When I look at back now in retrospect, though, um, I was being given a pathway forward or words to it before it started to happen.
Mm.
So so yeah, the basketball dream started to go away, and I started having people lovingly point a finger in my chest and talk about ministry and leadership and the idea of seminary. And so the college chaplain was like, I think it would be good for you to consider seminary. And so towards the end of college, got married to my now wife, and we spent a couple of years in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I was a case manager for developmentally disabled, traumatic brain injury uh, folks.
Mm.
Yeah, I was inspired by the pathway of Henry Nouwen, the writings of Henry Nouwen, who went into that type of work, and chaplaincy within that type of work. So that was really good for me. And then applied to seminary in Denver. My wife and I thought, yeah, let's go to Denver. We love the mountains. We'll be there for however long it takes me to get a degree or get kicked out of seminary.
Mhm.
The latter would probably be more likely to happen, I thought.
Right, I expected the same, yes.
Yes. Um, but yeah, that was 21 years ago. So we did fall in love with the city. So I went from
Mm.
Hope, Indiana to falling in love with uh, urban spaces and specifically urban life in Denver. I'm a survivor of seminary. I got that seminary degree, that master's in divinity. And then from
Yep.
there, started moving more and more into sort of non-traditional church spaces. In many ways, I'm like, I can't do quite the traditional thing. I where pulpit ministry is the mode, is the primary medium of ministry. I was kind of drifting away from that during seminary and looking for creative ways of ministry. Um, and eventually my heart got, I kind of went through this second conversion. Some people call it a second conversion. If their first conversion is this befriending, this friendship with Jesus, some people call a second conversion the befriending of
Mm.
who are stuck in poverty, um, those who are oppressed and marginalized of society. And so I fell hard into that second conversion,
Mm.
and part of the that road was through New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina happened in 2000. Let's see, Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005, and in 2006 I had opportunities to lead teams and go down there and to do some restorative work. But I also fell in love with that entire city, the community. My eyes were opened really for the
Mhm.
when you come from a kind of a naive world, um, you don't think a whole lot about how communities do become marginalized and overlooked by local government and federal government. So this naive boy's eyes were open for the first time via the survivors of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. Um, and so my wife and I, we seriously flirted with the idea of moving to New Orleans in 2007. And then we kind of said, but I don't really know my own backyard here in Denver as well as I could. So I started connecting with people doing urban ministry work in Denver, and that opened up beautiful new relationships and opportunities here in the city that we had lived in. And so now been here for 21 years.
Wow, wow. I mean, and I'll just say, from what I've seen on social media, you know, and when you do the Google searches and things like that, what I see, at least from my position, is that you give people's dignity, that folks who are um, underprivileged, who are life has just been unfair and hard and all of those things, um, and hope, that I think a lot of them so desperately need. At least that's where I see it from my perspective, at least as far as your ministry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So about so I'm just transitioning out of a role that I was in for 15 years, and that was with a friend connected me with this guy who was running a hospitality house in downtown Denver for chronically homeless, chronically mentally ill folks, and that was right down in Capitol Hill, Denver. So it's so funny because you had Brian Henderson
Yeah.
on the show a few weeks ago, and I'm like, hey, we worked about 3 blocks from one another. Um,
That's crazy.
when he was at First Baptist Church. It was literally down 14th Avenue to the
Oh
west
my
of my building at Network Coffee House. So yeah, so for 15 years I worked at a little joint called Network Coffee House as both pastor and executive director of this nonprofit. And the whole idea of that was just anybody and everybody could come through that front door. And it was primarily chronically homeless,
Mm.
chronically mentally ill, chronically overlooked and oppressed people of downtown Denver. And the whole desire was just to give them a place to belong, a safe place to be, and then to develop relationships with, like to start to form just very simple attachments, so like, and
Mm.
the only metric for success, for what we did was like, are they coming back? Are we getting to know one another? Are we starting to learn names and stories, and then sort of like the ultimate was like, yeah, that's actually my friend now. So we wouldn't miss an opportunity to see one another and spend time together. So those were our metrics of success, is just relatability, just
That's
relate.
those are perfect. I mean, as somebody who now works i- in that more structured, where you have to write your SMART goals and all of that stuff, to be able to that's your measurement is that you've got the honor of calling someone your friend. That yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, 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 and it's kind of, in some ways it's modeled after, well, I mean, it's a crazy thought. It's modeled after Jesus, um,
Imagine
but
that.
yeah, Jesus, he starts off with his disciples, and eventually towards the end of life says, "I no longer call you servants; I now call you friends." And it's
Yeah.
like, if that's the arc of development and maturity, then yeah, let's do that.
Let's
Let's
do that.
let's go from, yeah, you were at one time you were my students or whatever, but now you're my friends.
Mm.
And then there's this other text where Jesus says, I'm going to go away and prepare a place for you. And so there's this crazy idea of, what if we prepared a place for anybody to belong to? Um, so that was the whole idea of Network Coffee House. I wasn't the founder of that. I came along and took over for the founder. And then now, after 15 years, I could just see that it was my time to move on and venture elsewhere. And so we've got the reason for that. I had that in my mind for quite a while, but I started to see somebody come along who I thought could take my place.
Mm.
And last year, about this time, um, I kind of popped the question to him to say if he would be dumb enough. It's interesting. When I started, I had a friend say, "Hey, there's this interesting opportunity in Capitol Hill with this really weird pastor." And my friend said, "Ryan, I think you might be dumb enough to do something like that." So, and I was dumb enough to do that. And so the whole time it was, I mean, in the last couple of years, it was about trying to find somebody else dumb enough to take my place. And so I landed on that person, and then it was time for me to transition on.
So what comes next?
Yeah. Well, for one, my wife, after kind of being the captain of home base of
Mhm.
Taylor International Headquarters here on Flamingo Court, she was ready to get back into exploring her passions and into full-time work. And so that was one of the reasons why it was time to transition on. It's like, what does it look like to support her now after so many years of, kind of her supporting me and taking care of home base? How can I reverse that role? How can we empower her and support her and to do what she's doing? And she works with a nonprofit that works with youth in the judicial system, trial, pre-trial, post-trial,
Mm.
primarily gang-affiliated youth. And so wanted to give her the green light to go full steam ahead in her role. And so I have two teenagers at home. I've got Josiah, who's 15 and who'll be 16 next month, and Micah, who's 13. My studio right now is Micah's bedroom, and I'm grateful that you can see what you see, but you don't have to smell what I smell right now.
Yeah. Because teenage boys.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's part of it, but also my desire for a long time, and what I've dabbled in for a long time is spiritual direction, the work of spiritual companioning. So I do have about 7 individuals that I work with one-on-one
Okay.
in this season of life, and I just say I what I feel compelled to do or called to do is walk with people through both the ordinary and the quantum transitions of life.
Okay.
So I think we're always in transition in life, but then there are these big transitions in life that are huge. And so my desire and what brings me life is to walk with people while they're asking questions through those spaces of transition. And it's especially folks that are kind of in that deconstruction space from what they once knew as their spirituality, as their Christianity. Now they're starting to ask more questions. They're wondering if they're a Christian anymore, and what comes next after the church or after Christianity. So those are my people, um, as well as those who are working in hard spaces, with people that are um, marginalized and oppressed, and sort of the hardship, the secondary trauma that comes with working with those folks. Those are my people, and I'm just like, I want to be available to those folks. And I also we have a house church. So my role at Network for years was both as pastor of a small church, as well as executive director. And so we split the church off from the nonprofit. And so
Mm.
I'm continuing to do that, and it's just a very small version of church, in which, but if people don't need to call it church or don't want to call it church, that's totally fine. But I'll offer a reflection, and we'll try to keep it very dialogical so that
Yeah.
everybody's talking and interacting with it. So I am still doing that on Sundays, as well as some spiritual direction work, as well as um, getting all the stuff from Costco.
Getting all those. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
But for anybody who's been in ministry, I don't know. To me, it doesn't. I'm not going. Oh, well, he's got plenty of free time. I mean, that's not what's running. I'm going. Well, yeah. That keeps you pretty busy, right
Yep.
there, and hopefully enough to keep you out of trouble. Um, yeah, because while all that work that you've done up to this point has been so incredibly important, it's not like it's like, okay, so I was a pastor. I'm still a pastor, just a different kind. I mean, you're still in ministry. It just shifts and changes as you go along. I mean, would you go back to it? Probably not in the church. I can't imagine myself doing that, but I like that. I like the house church and the dialogue and leaving space to deconstruct this thing that you grew up with and went, well, okay, that worked then, there, but I'm not buying that anymore because Jesus isn't all those things. Or Jesus is so much more. God is so much more. So I I love this.
Isn't that crazy that we work in the business of God and we're
Yeah,
supposed to talk about it?
yeah. Um, I got pulled over once for speeding, and I was like, I told the officer wanted to know where I was going in such a hurry, and I said I was going to the church, and and I was brand new to this church, and I'm so surprised I didn't get in big trouble. But he was like, um, "Can you?" He's like, "So you're the pastor?" Yeah, I'm the pastor, and he goes, "Can you prove it?" And what came rolling out of my mouth is like, "Do you want me to, like, produce my God card or something?" And the officer goes, "Do you have one?" "No, but I had the bulletin from Sunday, and it's got my name on it." Yeah, so,
Yep.
I didn't get a ticket. I should have probably, but yeah.
Got you. The clergy card got you out of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Membership
once
has its privileges. Yeah.
right, right. So yeah, yeah, who's your employer? God. I mean, yeah, if you wanna go, yeah. But, and I love all things now, and I mean, you can't go wrong there. I
Mm.
mean, really, and if folks, if you're listening or watching and you don't know now, and let either one of us know, and we'll help you out. You could start just about anywhere and not go wrong with
Yeah.
Now One's works. And it's one of those that I don't know about you, but like I keep on my shelf and oh, I think I need this one for yeah, the I think I need to read this one again.
Oh,
So uh,
so simple, so accessible, and, it's been so important. He has been so important for me,
yeah,
through the years, and I'll tell you, like, when I did move away from the basketball team, the quote that hooked me, um, when we were talking about, like, if we need a gateway drug into Nowen, I love the book In the Name of Jesus. Um,
mm,
so in that book, he says, "The Christian leader of the future, will be completely irrelevant with nothing to offer but his or her own vulnerable self." And that it's that quote that hooked me, in this desire, I think especially as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, you you wanna find relevance. I mean, the whole idea, and even in religion, you're trying to find the relevant way to speak, the relevant way to talk about God, or just the relevant spaces to navigate in life. And here he comes along and says, the leader of the future will be completely irrelevant and have nothing to offer but their own vulnerability. And I was just like, whoa, that's that ain't going away. Like, so
no.
that quote has haunted and echoed in me up until the present. Like, what does that mean? So
We'll put
intriguing.
that one in the show notes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard that one. And wow, that's huge.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I know what I'm thinking about this afternoon because, like, that's, uh huh. Yeah. Oh, wow. Way to go. And I guess so that I'm just not sitting here while my brain is still pondering now. But like, you wrote a book. Right. You're now a published author. What was your book?
I have a book called
About?
Awkward Spirituality. So when the pandemic happened, so like in early of 2020, I just thought, oh, now's my time to write a book.
Oh,
So we were continuing to keep Network going, but it was at a smaller scale than usual. And I've done quite a bit of writing over the years, and so Awkward Spirituality, the Divinity of Ordinary Life. And I think that now in quote is kind of at the beginning of the book. It sort of sets the tone for the book. But it's my ramblings on experiences, relationships that I've had at Network, and sort of how that shaped my theology. And there's another quote, and I'm blanking on who the author is. So you probably shouldn't say the quote unless you know who the author is, but I'm going to anyway. Um,
you know.
yeah, God comes to us disguised as our life. I can't remember who said that, but I'm a firm believer in that God comes to us disguised as all the different ebbs and flows, ups and downs, and adventures and misadventures of our life. It's all in those nooks and crannies and circumstances that God comes to us, and so that's the basis of a lot of the book as well.
We'll find the quote and or listener, viewer, also you can chime in. And but
Yeah, Amazon. You can
eh,
get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
and we'll put links. We'll put links in the show notes and all of that.
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought two kids from the middle of the cornfield would like end up where we are, and that I get to do this, like this is they pay me to do this is just, I mean, sometimes it just blows my mind that I was pastoring and people would pay me to stand up and talk about Jesus and hope and love and now I get to do a podcast and I get to make connections with people and go back to people that I haven't seen in, forever and just go because we've all got so much to good stuff to share with one another, really. I mean, if we can do it, like, come on.
Yeah, it's so wild. Yeah, it's that adventure. God keeps coming to us and surprising us
Yeah.
with God.
And so really your why you went the direction you went was all because of that. Would you say it was all that the Hurricane Katrina experience was then the catalyst for going, yeah, I'll be that guy who will do the network coffee house thing. Was that the big?
Yeah, I think so much of the catalyst for what I've done is through wonderful mentors, wonderful
Mm,
guides. I mean, I feel like a very, very wealthy person in that, and I don't know if you would probably say something similar, Meg. Just the right time, just the right person has come along
yeah,
and um, and affirmed and listened to your life and offered the right question or a new way to frame things, and you kind of go, man, I'm wealthy in my relationships, and and people are longing to be related to, and so I think it's yes, that's what and I think that Hurricane Katrina experience was a big catalyst in a season of life that helped shape the direction I was heading in. But it's primarily it's been the people along the way
Mm.
that
Yeah.
have thought about it like this, or this is what I see in you, or I'd like to affirm this in you. Um, and I go, ah, that's so good. It that took me from constriction to expansion and how I
Yeah.
see everything. And if I could offer that to others, that's what I would love to do. Um, and then I get to my first night at the coffee house. There was an individual who walked up to me, and this would shape me moving forward too. He walked up to me and he stuck a finger in my chest because he just sees a big, polite-looking white man, come into his space, and what he says is, he said, "You'd better not be here to fix me." Because he'd been used to, like, the missions kids, or being in spaces where, "Oh, pity you, I'm here to make you better. I'm here to fix you." So he said he comes up to me, he literally sticks it's interesting, his name was Kickback, that was his street name, and fingers that were down to the knuckle from frostbite, and he sticks one of those knuckles in my chest and says, "You'd better not be here to fix me." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not what this ministry thing is about. People aren't
Wow.
meant to be fixed, they're to be related to, and related to in such a way that provides an opportunity for healing and for wholeness."
Wow. Yeah.
And I mean, if we're gonna relate to others, then we've gotta throw ourselves out there to be related with. I mean, for it to be a reciprocal, a mutual exchange, and not just the person who went to seminary, um, sort of I'm you're the receiver, I'm the provider of all the wisdom and the goodness. It's like, no, the real magic happens when there's a mutuality and there's spaces of deep, deep connection in which I'm being changed, by the one I'm relating to. And so I think that's what I've gotten hooked on over the years and continues to influence the direction that I'll go is, yes, I have something to offer as this clergy person, but I'm continuing to be shaped and changed and, ministered to. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, there's been a lot of influences, but I think, once you get off your high horse and you put your seminary certificate away and those things get dusty, you God continues to come to you by the people that you think that you're ministering to, and
Mhm.
that's what keeps me going.
Yeah. And I think one of the best things people can do is leave home. I'm
Mhm.
not saying that you have to leave home and never go back, but I I couldn't today um in Hope, Indiana. Like um cuz you you got to be able to see the people and not just, oh, well, that's the story that everybody's known for 100 years about about that person, and I don't you've gotta live and you've gotta let yourself be the broken and maybe
Yeah.
stop looking at other people as the broken, and I don't
Yeah.
know that I could have done that in Hope, Indiana, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there are people that can, but not me.
Well, it is. I mean, we just get into these frames of references and frames of seeing things, and I think some people have the ability to bust out of their frame of reference even when they stay in the same location. But I know I have needed changes of scenery and
Mhm,
changes of perspective and opinion in order to in order for me to expand, my perception and perspective of how life works, and how people work. Um, and it's a lot of you talk about leaving home, and I think about the work of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and a lot of the Greek mythological stuff of the leaving home to go find yourself, and then eventually you could come back home. But also eventually home changes, what home is. Uh,
Yeah.
but I also think of Genesis chapter 12. The whole Abrahamic journey begins with a leaving home invitation. Um, the text says that God invites Abraham to leave his his household, how he grew up, the
Mm.
every way that he grew up and where he came from. He's asked to leave that all behind, and then and God, if he goes, well, where am I going? God says, go to the land I will show you. It's like, oh, that's really helpful. Um, but
Right.
that's like, I don't know what's up ahead. Um, but I know in order for me to continue to follow the path, I've got to leave what's now and adventure forth.
So if you could like um talk to that kid who's still in the trumpet section, you know, now what would you tell that what would you tell that kid?
Mm, oh man, that's a wonderful question. And
I should have warned you about that one.
no, that's great. But I love it that you and I can reflect back on the
Yeah.
on the trumpet section. And what'd you say, the clarinet? Is that
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
faked? Okay.
Yes, my big. Yes.
Yeah. Um, well, if I could talk to that kid, I think one of the most important things would just be to, affirm that kid to death, of just like, dude, you don't have to impress me. And you don't have to impress anybody. Like, work hard, do your best. But you are okay
Yeah.
right now in who you are. So the kid just need to be loved, right? Like,
Yeah.
showered and saturated with affirmation and love. Well, and a good kick in the butt too at times, but
I mean, yeah. I mean, honestly, yes.
which is
Um,
love at times. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it is. It is.
Um, I think it would be, to seek out wisdom guides, to seek out mentors, to ask good questions, um, to
Yeah.
not limit yourself um, to your current perception, to always be on the road of evolving into what's truer, what's healthier, um, and yeah, all that,
No, I think those are great answers, really. I mean,
yeah. Don't be
that
so
would be
scared, dude.
yeah, things that um, yeah, relax.
Relax.
Life will happen, and
Just
yeah, yeah. Um, leave home. Yeah, I mean, and explore and listen to people that don't take what they say as
yes.
yeah, yeah. As it can only be this way. Yeah, don't put a limit. Don't limit what what God can do. Um, all
Mhm.
all all those things. Um, but life is lived. Understand what is it? We live forward, but we understand it backwards. I think is
Yeah.
what
Yep.
Kierkegaard.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Hmm.
So if so we've got your book, and we'll put up the links and all that, and if people wanted to get in touch with you, uh, how you socials or something like that. That
Sure. Yeah,
Oh,
you could put my email in the
okay,
show notes as well, and
okay.
but you're welcome to. I don't check the whole Facebook Messenger thing as frequently as
Yeah,
people think I should,
I
um,
know.
but Facebook or Instagram is how
Okay,
to get hold of me.
you
Um,
can put those there.
yeah, you could
Oh,
plop the email down in
mhm,
the notes here today, but
mhm.
I love doing this. I love chatting, and it's just so fascinating to especially chat with somebody from back home.
I know, I know. I do have to ask you the joy question, though.
The joy question. Okay.
The joy question. So, how it goes is, you do all these things. Now you're what, chauffeur, um, Costco getter. I mean, like all these, but like, so what brings you joy?
I would say the creative process.
Mm,
I more and more I'm dabbling in sketch and painting, and I just built a big old bookshelf because I moved from my office downtown and had to move too many books home. So I started dreaming over the holidays about this bookshelf that I wanted to make, and so but the process of making and creating, there's a childlike thing. There's things that fire in the brain and in the body in the creative process that
right.
um, that don't if I'm just watching TV or something. And it's the same stuff that fires when I'm walking alongside somebody in spiritual
Mm,
direction or I'm spiritual companioning somebody is like we're chasing that childlike discovery stuff of when we go, oh wow, I never saw it like that before. Um, so that brings me joy. Whenever I see that, whenever I experience that within myself, or whenever I see those fireworks popping in somebody else, and I'm able to have a front row seat to that.
sometimes life is just like the coolest thing ever. I mean, really.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and it's the really simple, non-elaborate stuff where we go, life is the coolest thing ever, you know?
oh, I know, and I mean that would be what I want to. I think that that's what would be like what I want to tell my younger self. Life is really it's going to surprise the crap out of you in some really great ways, and yeah, some not so great ways too. But
Yep.
just hang on and
Mm.
do the best you can to enjoy the ride.
I
Yeah.
love that. Life's gonna surprise the crap out of you, and how like how can you set yourself up to allow for that? Because right, like how can you create habits and a space to allow yourself to continually be surprised? Because I think that's scary. Like life surprises are terrifying, and so the tendency to just numb ourselves out or to protect ourselves from any way of being surprised or hurt, in the future. Um, it's like yeah, in good ways and bad ways. You're gonna get punched in the teeth. And you're gonna be swept off your feet in amazing ways. So how can you not constrict yourself? I don't mean to. I just love what you just said. So I'm just kind of now going down my own
Yeah.
trail,
No. No.
like of what you would tell that younger self of, yeah, life is going to come at you with surprises, and allow for it. Allow for it. Don't insulate yourself from how
And
it might shock you and surprise you.
even the ones that really seem like at the time that they sucked, um, when you go when you look at it after the fact and go, "Oh, like, I am not the same as I was then by the grace of God," and that's okay, because I didn't see this coming, but and life is different now, and that's really okay. okay. Um, and yeah, there's grief and all that stuff that goes with the hard thing, but it'll be okay. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the birthing thing. We're being
Yes.
it's being born again and then being born again and again and again.
And again, again. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
but but part of that process is pain.
Yeah.
I've heard.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I've had 3 of them and, yeah, yeah, it doesn't tickle. So, I mean, but neither does life in general. So, but, um, I think especially as the older I get, that's what I'm trying to remind myself is that even in those pain points, there's always something to learn and, um, you're gonna go through it one way or the other, so I might as well, um, hopefully come out a little better on the other side.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure there are better ways to articulate that, and if
No,
somebody wrote that in a book,
I'm totally
hopefully.
with that those
Yeah,
pain points. Like the
yeah,
pain points, the pain is pointing to longing
yeah,
oftentimes. And that word long, and then we're all desiring to belong, which is being, the mashup between being and longing.
mm,
And I feel like that those pain points, they're our invitations to draw out our being and our longing and keep drawing us forward if we can take the risk of seeing it that way. But typically, what I like to do is revert back to a more comfortable way. Yeah,
right.
more
Well,
familiar.
as we all do.
Yep.
Mm, this is good, like, this is good. This is great. I am really grateful for you, giving your time, figuring out the figuring out the browser situation, sharing a small part of your story. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna buy the book because I mean it. It sounds right up my alley, and yeah, I am just grateful. So thank you for being a part of Ministry Mondays and and sharing your story, at least this little bit.
It's super privilege for you to invite me to do it. So really good to be with you and blessings to you on your way. And Meg will always have hope.
Ah, ah, that's beautiful.
A surprising little town.
A surprising little town. I mean, like hashtag hope. They should put us in well, they don't have the Star Journal anymore, but you know, be like, hey, look at this. Look, the two that escaped, but
Yep.
it's we always have hope. That's lovely. And with that, we'll thank everybody for